Death is the one certainty that touches every human life, yet it remains the ultimate mystery. We all experience the fear of it, the anxiety of the unknown, and the questions that linger in the silence. What happens when the body ceases to function, when consciousness leaves the familiar vessel of flesh? Is it truly the end, or is death merely a transition into a different form of existence, a journey the soul has always known? Many cultures across time have explored the idea of life beyond death. Ancient Egyptians meticulously prepared for the afterlife, constructing elaborate tombs and rituals. Hindus and Buddhists speak of reincarnation, a cyclical journey of the soul through lifetimes, each offering lessons, growth, or consequences of actions. Even in modern thought, the idea persists that consciousness may not be bound to the physical form. But how much of this is comforting myth, and how much is an insight into the nature of reality? Near-death experiences have fascinated scientists and philosophers alike. Those who have been clinically dead yet returned often describe vivid sensations, moving through tunnels of light, encountering beings or voices, a profound sense of peace or love. These accounts challenge our understanding of life, suggesting that awareness may persist even when the body fails. Could these glimpses be proof that consciousness is not limited to neurons and synapses? The concept of the soul has been central to the debate. Is the soul a distinct, eternal essence, or simply a poetic metaphor for our mind, memory, and personality? Philosophers like Plato argued that the soul exists beyond the body, experiencing life in forms before birth and after death. To consider death a transition rather than an end is to acknowledge that what we call self may have always existed, and will continue to exist in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Reincarnation introduces an unsettling question. If life is a cycle, are we truly in control? Are our choices our own, or are they echoes of lessons learned in past lives? This perspective reframes human suffering, failure, and joy. Pain is no longer random, it is a teacher, a mirror reflecting unresolved aspects of the soul. Understanding death as a passage rather than a termination can shift how we perceive purpose and consequence. Yet the fear of death persists because transition is unknown. Humans crave certainty. We cling to identity, relationships, and achievements, fearing their loss. But if consciousness survives, what is truly lost in death? Perhaps the fear is not of death itself, but of the surrender of control, of releasing the ego and the familiar framework we depend on. This is why contemplating death is both terrifying and liberating. Modern science has attempted to reduce death to biology. Cells cease, the brain stops firing, and the body decays. From this perspective, consciousness is a product of neurons, and death is absolute. Yet science cannot yet explain subjective experiences, qualia, or the sense of self. Could the inability to quantify the soul simply mean that science has not reached the limits of what is observable? Many spiritual traditions describe the journey of the soul after death as a path toward integration. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes stages where consciousness may linger, reliving attachments, fears, or unresolved emotions before moving on. Similarly, near-death accounts often describe life reviews as if the soul evaluates its experiences before continuing. Could death be less of an end and more of a reflection, a pause, a recalibration? Death also serves as a mirror to life. Contemplating it forces us to examine our choices, values, and priorities. If life is finite, what are we spending our time on? If death is a transition, what lessons are we carrying forward? Both perspectives challenge us to live intentionally, to face mortality not with despair, but with curiosity and presence. The concept of transition does not necessarily imply linear progression. Many mystics and philosophers suggest that time itself may be an illusion. If consciousness is not bound by linear time, past, present, and future could coexist. Death might then be less a door and more a shift in perspective, where the soul experiences existence from angles inaccessible during waking life. This challenges every assumption about permanence and finality. Some propose that death and rebirth are part of an interconnected tapestry of existence. Souls influence one another across lifetimes, forming networks of lessons, love, and unresolved ties. The concept of soul ties emerges here, connections that transcend a single life. These bonds may explain why certain relationships feel destined, why some pains echo through generations, and why our choices ripple beyond immediate perception. Fear of the unknown is natural, but it can also cloud the potential beauty of transition. Death might not be annihilation, but transformation. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. If consciousness is energy, perhaps the self continues, evolving in ways imperceptible to the mortal mind. The question shifts from what happens when I die to what am I becoming? The ego struggles with this idea because it clings to permanence. Identity, status, and memory are comforts we fear losing. But the soul, if it exists, transcends these constructs. Lucid reflection on mortality allows us to disentangle attachment from essence, revealing a more expansive understanding of existence. Death as transition becomes not an end, but an awakening to dimensions previously unseen. Even skeptics and atheists encounter existential echoes in the face of death. Dreams, intuition, and profound experiences hint at layers of awareness beyond material reality. Whether interpreted as spiritual, psychological, or quantum in nature, these experiences challenge the narrative that death is simply cessation. They invite us to question the boundaries of what we call life and self. Ultimately, contemplating whether death is the end or a transition is not merely academic, it is deeply personal. It is an inquiry into the nature of consciousness, identity, and the universe itself. The answers may never be definitive, but the questions reshape how we live, how we love, and how we face the inevitable. Death may indeed be a door, but the courage lies in stepping toward it. Eyes wide open, heart ready, and mind aware of the infinite possibilities that may lie beyond.